Mr. Hoviak for the purpose of recording attendance.
Thomas Lima.
Here.
Vanessa Ruggieri. Here. Joseph Caputa.
Hello.
Ryan Santana.
Here.
David Alden Sears.
Here.
Emily Ferguson. Here. Caitlin Kane. Deb Costa.
Here.
Catherine Enos. Here. Genesis Garcia.
Here.
Janelle Gomez. Here. Amanda Monahan. Joshua Percy.
Here.
Alexis Polanski. Matthew Scriba. Brianna Winstead. Marissa Weiss. Sean Waltenberger. Valerie Andress. Rosalind Sabilski. Here. Arthur Patry.
Here.
Nicholas Lima.
Here.
Mr. Hoviak, do we have a quorum?
How many leaves do you have?
I have 3.
So, let's go and check into 6, so it's 22 minus 3 leaves equals 19 divided by 2 is 9.5, so it's 10 plus 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Okay, perfect. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next order of business is approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to accept? Motion's been made by Representative Eno, seconded by Representative Gomez. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. President?
I'd like to make a motion to add under new business item C, Rhode Island College Dining Services Advisory Board bylaws.
Can you say that again, please?
The Rick Dining Service Advisory Board bylaws.
Service Advisory Board bylaws. And who's the sponsor?
I would like to make that motion.
So you'll be the, okay.
And Arthur Patrick would be the name of it.
Okay. So Mr. Patry will be the sponsor. And motion's been made by President Lima to amend, seconded by Representative Percy. Any discussion? Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Agenda is amended. Any discussion on the agenda as amended at this time? Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Abstentions? Agenda is approved. Next order of business is the approval of the minutes from February 7, 2018, special election and parliament meetings. Do I hear a motion? Motion been made by Vice President Ruggieri and seconded by Mr. Costa. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Abstentions? Minutes are approved. Next order of business, open forum. Anyone here? I don't see anyone. Open forum's closed. Officers' announcements, item A. President Lima, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll keep this brief. This is speaking several times later on the agenda, moving about online. I met with Vice President of Student Success, Dr. Nerdberger, on Monday. He gave me a further update on the search for a new Dean for Student Life and Associate Vice President for Student Life, which is a combined position. He said that within 2 weeks, the job posting will be on the RIC website, and we will go from there. They will go from there searching candidates. There will be students on the selection committee. He said he wanted the SCG president and other students, so I'll be reaching out to students again to serve on this committee. I was tasked with vetting candidates and asking questions for the new dean of students. Aside from that, I hope everyone has a safe and productive spring break. A reminder, there is a meeting the week after spring break, so if you have any business resolutions, policy amendments, other statements that you want to see on that agenda, please email or stop by my office during office hours or stop by SCG anytime and leave me a message if you want to talk about resolutions. I know there are several pending from several different representatives, and I believe we can work to get those together for the next Parliament meeting. Because after the next Parliament meeting, there will not be a normal Parliament meeting until April after the budget hearing meetings. So we really, after this meeting, have 2 regular meetings left to conduct the business of the student body. Just want to give everyone a reminder that the time is running out. And that concludes my announcements.
Thank you, Mr. President. Vice President Ruggieri.
Mr. Speaker, hi everyone, I hope you're all surviving midterms. I'll keep my announcements brief. First of all, Finance approved the website redesign today, so that'll be underway. We'll have a remodeled website very soon. Also, we had town hall last Wednesday. We talked about Res Life. It was a pretty good turnout. I wish we had more members of parliament there. Just reminded that that is part of your duty as members of parliament to attend town hall. So I would love to see you all at the next one. And that concludes my announcements.
Secretary Caperta.
Yes, hello everybody. My announcements are short. Today we had a SOC meeting and we did have 3 potential clubs coming up for recognition, but unfortunately the committee thought it best to table all 3 of them until after spring break. So hopefully we'll see these on the agenda the next time, well, the time after we have our next meeting. So that's my great announcement today.
Treasurer Santana.
Hello everybody, I don't have much to say. We had finance again today. There was also student activities fee deposits, so we are back up in the black, happily enough. That report will be here for the next meeting, because of course we just had finance today, so the minutes have to be approved, they have to be accepted. If they could be still vetoed, so I don't want to do it before that 3-day period is over. I look forward to seeing you all satisfied and unsatisfied budget hearings. Other than that, I don't really have much to talk about. Thank you.
Leaves from Dr. Valerie Endress. Unfortunately, I'll be unable to attend the February 28th Parliament meeting because I'll be out of town. I look forward to our meeting in March. Best wishes, Valerie Endress. Motion to accept. Motion made by Representative Lima and seconded by Representative Gomez. Any discussion? Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So ordered. Amanda Monahan, good morning. Please excuse my absence from tonight's meeting as I will be traveling to an out-of-state conference. I wish everyone a fruitful and well-deserved spring break. Best, Amanda Monahan. Motion to accept by Janelle Gomez, seconded by Vice President Ruggieri. Any discussion? Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstained. Accepted. Dr. Marissa Weiss. I would like to request a leave for Wednesday's meeting as I need to staff the trip for the Black Panther screening at the Providence Place Mall. Marissa Weiss, PhD. Motion to approve made by Representative Gomez, second by Treasurer Santana. Discussion. Move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. So ordered. Parliament. I was late due to working on a midterm exam. Best, Alexis Polanski. Motion to approve by Janelle Gomez, seconded by Emily Ferguson. Any discussion? Move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions by the Treasurer Santana and Representative Polanski. Accepted. Had the pleasure of introducing on Saturday Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, not in my capacity as Speaker of Parliament or as representative at large, as a member of Parliament, but as a private student. They had an event, like a town hall event for the senator at Gage Hall in the new auditorium. Beautiful auditorium, if some people haven't seen it yet. So that was a good event. A lot of people turned up, and we had whether or not it's a politician or them talking about their views or speaking to constituents. anytime we get any kind of event here on campus, I think is a good thing. Really gets the college some exposure, gets people on campus, and they really get to see while they're here what the college is all about. See what a beautiful campus we have, and you know, we had some students show up, so that was nice as well. I had a rap today at Donald, and I gotta say it was a very good rap. And I would suggest to the representative present here that they name the rap after me because it was my thing. I think they call it the speaker. Now it was a white wrap, and on it was the fried chicken. I got the bacon for an extra 25 cents, I think it was, I'm not sure. And it was American cheese, honey mustard, and it was toasted. And this wrap was incredible. So if anyone is looking for something new to try it down, and it was a very good wrap, I highly recommend it. Also, it's the Deputy Speaker's birthday today. Deputy Speaker Ferguson is 19 today. So happy birthday.
I second that.
Yes, and with that is the Deputy Speaker's announcement, so, you know, happy birthday.
Thank you. Okay, so conditions and services is going great. We're doing some reorganizing. We're putting complaint boxes all over campus because they were kind of centralized before. So we want to put one in like every dorm lobby on East Campus because they were just kind of like the student union and the library. So we're working on a survey sent out to the whole student body, just asking questions about what they think needs to be changed, like their concerns about the services and all stuff like that. So we're setting that up now, coming up with questions. And we have 5 Parliament seats left and 2 non-Parliament seats left, so you should join, get your friends involved. It's great.
Thank you. Next order of business is reports. Item A, Finance Commission minutes from February 7, 2018 and February 14, 2018. Treasurer Santana.
Good evening, everybody. As per usual, here are the minutes. There are 2 because, of course, we did not meet last week. Finance has been working overtime to get all these meetings going. After budget hearings, we would have a few requests. If you'd like to page through it, you know, there's interesting things like the concert fund, a couple of conferences. It's all things I'll touch on in the allocation report next meeting. But if you have any questions now, I'm more than happy to hear them.
Do I hear a motion to accept? Motion's been made by Representative Costa. Do I hear a second by Representative Gomez? Any discussion? Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Abstentions from the treasurer, from Representative Polanski, Representative Gomez. Minutes are approved. Item B, Residential Lifetime Home Meeting Report of February 19th, 2018. Vice President Riccier.
Like I said, for the announcements, we had our resident town hall last Monday. You can just read that, see it, let me know any questions, comments, or concerns.
Thank you. Deputy Speaker Ferguson, do you have anything to add? Your name's on there. Okay, do I hear a motion to accept? Motion made by Representative Gomez, seconded by Representative Garcia. Any discussion? Representative Garcia.
I have a question for President Tom. At the meeting, at the town hall, you said something about 21 plus halls. So are you referring to like if we have like a hall that's 21 plus that we can drinking is allowed there? Is that what you was referring to?
I can respond to that, Mr. Speaker.
Certainly.
I was asking a question of the Director of Resident Life and Housing of that, kind of basically what you said. I was asking if the college had any plans to look into a 21 plus dorm, or I've heard rumors of an off-campus partnership that Rick is looking at once the numbers in the dorms increase. So I'm making a statement to the Director of Housing on that, to see if the college would consider looking into that.
Any further discussion? Motion made and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? So ordered. Item C, Rear Council Report of February 16, 2018. President Lima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This report was over there on the table. It's a rather large packet because I've attached the policy that was passed at the Rick Council, and I also attached a a PDF version, print out from a PDF of a PowerPoint presentation that President Sanchez gave at this meeting to supplement the report. The bulk of this discussion was about RIC Online. There was other items, important items discussed, including changes by the Committee on Academic Policy and Procedure to the, it goes into basically some policies regarding academic dismissal, probation, etc. And the college sure goes up on their end. And this was something that the RIC Council looked at last year. It was a committee in the past of this meeting. And if you want more information, it's in the packet. If you have any questions, I was at the meeting for the discussion of that. Aside from that, there was a discussion by the Provost Hamilton, and the Provost said basically that RIC needs to do something, do better at possibly whether it be competing with URI or competing for new incoming freshmen to offset what is a slight dip in enrollment, possibly directly from the Ryan Crumb Scholarship, or if it's not from the Ryan Crumb Scholarship, it could be because there are less graduate and seniors in Rhode Island due to depopulation of some towns and cities. Either way, the college enrollment is down at it's just sitting just above 8,000 undergraduate students, which is what was said at the meeting. They said it was a 20-year low, potentially. So that was an issue of concern for the RIC Council, and there was a lengthy discussion on what RIC can do to compete for students to get them to transfer to RIC if they do partake in the CCRI RA Promise Scholarship, the Ryan RA Promise Scholarship, which is big, if you don't know what that is, sending students, in-state residents to CCRI if they maintain so many credit hours within 2 years and enough GPA, their tuition is waived and paid for by the state. And then we talked about RIC Online, and President Sanchez had a lengthy discussion in the report on that. Before I get any further into discussion, I'd like to make a motion to approve the report.
Motion was made by President Lima and seconded by Mr. Costa. Mr. President, do you want to discuss further?
Yes, just to touch briefly, it's in the report. I'll be talking about RIC Online next as well. In your packets, a lot of information presented at the meeting will be presented for the next agenda item. But the PowerPoint presented at the RIC Council meeting is included. The big question that President Sanchez received was why? Why is RIC looking at an online partnership? And he said that in order to basically modernize RIC, because an online partnership, in his opinion, would also modernize our own already existing programs that are online, but not online entirely for degrees, but there certainly are online classes for students that go to the physical campus that would benefit by an improved infrastructure for an online program. He also said that due to increasing enrollment, possibly from the RI Promise Scholarship, he believes it is necessary to seek a funding source that isn't from tuition dollars and isn't from state aid, which seems to be getting less and less. And he said that it's an option that the college is considering seriously, because in order to make up for any shortfalls on revenue, and that they believe that the program would be able to support itself, the revenue will bring in, and also support the rest of the campus by making more than the cost of the program. So if anyone has any questions on my report, I'm happy to answer.
Anyone? Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? The council meeting report accepted. New business, item A, RIC Online discussion. Mr. President, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. As you're all aware, President Sanchez came to us to speak on the February 7th meeting about RIC Online, the idea of an online-only program. Recently, at the last RIC Council, I was just talking about, he gave a PowerPoint presentation, and during that presentation, he said there would be some upcoming panels for students In fact, we're paid to attend. I have yet to personally see any emails sent out on the panel to students. But there was something that was put on the college's website for a Rick Online initial concept page, and it's in your packets if you've looked at it. It's a lengthy document, and it goes into a lot of the potential contract information, potential numbers, potential revenues, potential programs, classes. So if you have not looked at this document, it's on the RIC website. If you search RIC Online, hopefully you can find it that way. But it is in the following material packet I had it put in. So basically, I'm looking at this point for feedback. If you have read this proposal or you have any further concerns on RIC Online or questions, and I myself, I might be able to answer them because I've read some of this information. I read this information, but I can certainly follow up with the college administration. If you have questions and concerns on RIC Online and the content paper down on it.
Anyone? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to provide a little bit of further clarification because I want to make sure that everybody is clear on what is actually being proposed. And I would encourage you all to read the report that was posted online, so you don't just have to take my word for this. RIC Online is not going to be a program that is going to be open to any of you. This is an entirely online degree that is going to be separate from coming to Rhode Island College as a more traditional student. And it's something that initially is not going to be offered to any students in or out of state. The proposal is to go through a contracting service that provides continuing education for union members. So unless you're an AFL-CIO member, this is not something that is going to be open to you. So I know at the last meeting there were a lot of concerns expressed about the need for more online classes because of scheduling issues or availability issues. And those are all legitimate concerns that I would encourage you to keep voicing. We don't need an online program to do that. We can do that without this going forward. So just so that you're all clear, and I would encourage you again to read through, it's long, but I would encourage you to read it very carefully. Because the question was raised on Monday when the president spoke with the faculty at an open forum about the possibility of extending this to Rhode Island College students. And the answer that came back was this is in a 5-year planning phase, and it would be after the initial 5 years were up before there would be any talk about expanding it beyond the union members. So just a little bit more information.
Representative Jones.
So, do you know if there's going to be any more information on that? Just because, so I went through the, I don't know if it was 20 plus pages. For a lot of there's a lot of information, but there's also not a lot. It's all of the same thing, just over and over again. So I was just wondering if there's going to be information sessions that are open to students.
Mr. President.
I can answer that. And I have yet to see this. This was presented at RIC Council 2 weeks, and that was the last conversations I had on RIC Online. But it's in my RIC Online, on my RIC Council report, and the PowerPoint attached to it. There was going to be a student potential student open forum run by the college administration on March 14th during free period is the potential date given to the RIC Council at the time. And I have not heard anything since. I can reach out to the president's office to see if that's a potential date to help advertise for it. But that's a good question because I do have a lot of questions.
I feel like March 14th isn't an adequate amount of time for a lot of students to make it to that. So would there be more than one, or would it just be that one?
I can't speak for the president's office and the college administration, unfortunately. I can say that SCG will be holding their own town halls from a student perspective on this matter of talking to the vice president about that. But again, this was a date and a presentation by the president to the RIC Council that was put out. And I've yet to see it go out to the student body, so I'm not sure if the colleges have gone through that date or if they have other dates planned. I do know there have been faculty sessions that have student sessions yet.
Any further discussion? Mr. President?
I just want to speak a little bit on, Union Plus does seem to be the main partner that Rick is looking at, which is probably for the better. I do know, and it was advised to me by a faculty member, and again, I put that in the Rick Council report because it was asked at Rick Council. The college also received an offer from Michael Perrick, and if you don't know who that is, you can Google this person, is what I was told. And at the Rick Council meeting, the faculty member who mentioned that name and raised concerns about Michael Perrick, also told the president who was there, he basically forewarned not to do any business with Mr. Perrick. I just want that on record.
Sure.
And that, given it looks like the Union Plus offer is the main offer, and it would only be open to Union Plus members for the first 5 years, it's really, it doesn't really say that in the request for a proposal necessarily that I've seen, so it's something that definitely this body and I will be following up on. And if anyone here has any concerns on that, I can take action and ask questions kindly.
Certainly. I'm going to pass the gavel for a moment to say that it's my belief that, as I've stated to this body many a times, when America's unions are strong, the entire country is strong. And to do that, we have better educated union members and laborers in our country. It does nothing besides help us. It helps the workers. It helps productivity. And I am 100% in favor of an online program for union members here at Rhode Island College. However, when it comes to after the 5 years are up, if that's a proposal that will be open to everybody, that's where I share my concerns. In fact, I read a piece in the Anchor, which I believe was by Representative Enos, which I very much liked. I thought it was very informative. I shared a lot of the opinions that were stated, and it devalues a degree. Say, for instance, we have approximately 9,000, more or less, whatever, 9,000 people on campus. They all come here, they get their degree, they leave. Now all of a sudden, say for instance, we open it up to everybody. We have 10,000 online students, just for the sake of argument, and 9,000 people here. Slowly, that number will increase. We're gonna get money from that. We're gonna start doing ads. We're gonna start doing everything. And like I said to the president when he was here, and kind of half jokingly, half not, eventually you're gonna see us advertised on Judge Judy, commercial breaks with Judge Judy. And saying that here's where you can go and get your degree. And it'll be no different than, the universities that you see advertised already on commercials, stating, get your degree, take it online, you print it out off the printer when you're done. Congratulations, you're a college, you get your college degree. I disagree with that wholeheartedly, and hopefully the proposal stays as is and being exclusive to the Union Plus members and AFL-CIO and but however, if it was for the entire student body, I could not, in good faith, support it. Mr. President?
Yes, I would just like to second your concerns on an open program and the evaluation of a run college degree. Unfortunately, there's no guarantee with this proposal. 5 years is kind of the pilot test run with Union Plus members, if that's approved. But it could completely be open immediately after that, and we can't really predict on that, unfortunately, with the proposal. And I strongly do caution against that. I think a lot more can be done building our existing programs that way, rather than an only degree program.
I see this as nothing more than a money grab if that's what the proposal is going to be down the line. And I say that unbiasedly after reading through everything. Any further discussion on Rick Online? Hearing none, moving on to item C.
Point of personal privilege, Mr. Speaker.
Sure.
I'd like to actually make a motion to reconsider the Rick Council report approval. It was just brought to our attention as a late addition to the agenda tonight, so I didn't have a chance to read over it beforehand while the president was reviewing the report. I did notice a few points in here that I have some questions about, concerns, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, I make a motion to reconsider so I can form.
Motion to reconsider item C and seconded by Mr. President. Any further discussion? Hearing none, move to a vote. All those in favor of reconsidering, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Abstentions? The ayes have it, the motion's agreed to. We are back to item 6C, RIC Council report of February 16, 2018. You have the floor, Representative Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. President, my questions are for you. This is your report. The approved policy for good academic standing references at several points that if a student falls below a 2.0 GPA, they are unable to hold an officer position in a student organization. Were you aware of that?
I was not aware of that.
Actually,
I do not have
it
it.
states that for both probation 1 and probation 2, a student on academic probation, which is defined by this policy as any student with a GPA below 2.0 who's been placed on that probation, cannot hold, it's very broadly stated, unable to hold office in student organizations, and then it speaks of NCAA eligibility. So, one, my question is the college equating the secretary of the chess club to a NCAA athlete of the basketball team and holding them to the same eligibility standard to participate? 2, will the student activity fee for a student who falls below that threshold and is not entitled to full participation to student activities be refunded to those students? 3, what body on this campus is responsible henceforth, since this says it's going to effect in May, with administrating this and checking up the officer lists for all 70 or so recognized student organizations on this campus and determining whether or not those officers have and maintain a 2.0 standard. 4, is there an appeals process or any other process in place? 5, are those students in any other way limited in their rights to participate in student activities and organizations on this campus? I have some very grave concerns about this. As someone who's always fought for the rights of students to participate fully in campus life regardless of their academic performance, I've always believed that as long as you're a registered student at Rhode Island College, you pay the fees, you should be able to participate to the extent that you personally feel that no one should sort of hover over you and dictate to you what you can and cannot participate in. Student community government at one time, for 1 year, had a 2.0 GPA requirement that was implemented, I believe, in 2007. It was removed in 2008. And the reason was student community government was half full, which meant, by the way, was 22 members. And over the course of that academic year, one officer had to resign, and 4 members of parliament had to leave. So we were taking an organization that was half full, and because one student who was a freshman got an F and temporarily had a 1.95 GPA, technically they couldn't serve on the student parliament anymore. And Parliament, the very next year, saw the error of the ways in that policy and rescinded it unanimously, putting taking off a GPA requirement for you in Parliament. This seems to have arbitrarily, without coming to this body, without coming to the Executive Council, instituted a GPA requirement for apparently all student organizations. And I think that's something that this body should be aware of, should debate, should consider, and if this body has concerns about it, should certainly bring it up to the administration.
Mr. President.
Thank you, and I completely agree with all your points there. I think it's a gross lack of, short of the right word for that, for this, but I think it's a complete lack of participation from the student perspective on such an academic policy. Well, I'm sure the college committee and the RIC Council looked at what other colleges do as far as their academic requirements. The fact that they did not consult the student government, which governs organizations, is concerning. I do know that a 2.0 and below 2.0 for 1 more semester is grounds for academic dismissal. However, I completely agree with your points that the fact that a student who, for example, pays a student activity fee and cannot participate despite having paid the fee, their rights are being violated, in my opinion, because they're being taken money is being taken from them, yet they cannot participate in the organizations that, to the highest level that money is for. So this is a grave matter of concern for me. And again, I hope this report passes again, as it is just a report, and I'm glad this issue was brought up. And I will be bringing this to the college administration at my next meeting with both the vice president for student success and the college president. I have a one-on-one schedule, and I'm more than happy to have a further debate and draft a resolution if necessary regarding this issue at a future call.
Do I hear a motion to accept the council report? Motion made by Representative Person, seconded by Representative Costa. Any further discussion on the report? Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? The report passes again. Reverting back to new business, B, equal compensation for equal work resolution. Treasurer Santana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First and foremost, before touching on the resolution, I'd like to focus on the letter I addressed to Parliament. It is a request for myself and the President to be paid for our time during the budget hearings. For those of you that don't know, there's a weekend every year where the Finance Commission meets Saturday and Sunday 9 to 5 with an hour lunch break in order to hear the budget request for the following year from all the organizations. We're not paid for the lunch break, but it is 14 hours of work if you do take the entire 9 to 5 for the second day, depending on how long it takes for the consideration for recommendations. Currently, as it stands, I believe there's some inconsistencies in how the payment is handled because it is treated as an extraordinary event in stipend policy as per 3.1.13. Finance Commission members shall be paid $9.60 per hour budget hearings. This is something that is given to Parliament members, even though in 3.2, members of Parliament may not receive an additional stipend for serving on any of the above commissions or committees, nor shall non-student members serving on Parliament be compensated. So this is considered something separate from the normal duties of the Finance Commission outlined in 3.1.12, because Parliament members are still paid for it. As well in the stipend policy, a member shall not receive a stipend for multiple stipends from a singular organization. This is something that is also handled outside of that because the comptroller, who is a required member on the Finance Commission, if one is appointed, is giving a monthly stipend through SCG as well as an extra check for the budget hearing weekends. The letter is specifically for this year, myself and the President to be paid for our work. There is a few other things outlined in the letter. As per the request from last year, as well as the request for this year, budget hearings in 131 stipends, actually 131 office personnel, is outlined for 12 people. Last year it was requested $9.60 for 12 people, 14 hours. This year it's 14 hours, $10.10 per hour, just to go up a minimum wage. The idea behind that is because during the weekend you are required to be there. It's entirely mandatory as per the funding policies. If you miss it, you are removed from the Finance Commission immediately. And since it would be in Wall Street, you would also revoke your stipend from all the meetings up to that point for the semester. Due to the mandatory attendance and the fact that it's at such an odd time, Saturday and Sunday 9 to 5, it is almost expected that students are going to have to call out of work because a lot of around college students aren't working. Since they have to call out of work, we try to match at least minimum wage so that they are compensated for that time. And as well, the Finance Commission being one of the most important ones for SCG to continue functioning because they do handle the budget, of course. We try to incentivize people to be there and do not want them resigning because they cannot make it to that weekend. Going through the letter, it just touches on various things like that. Outlined in the bottom paragraph, I am not asking for an additional allocation. I am here because it is requested or it was recommended that I take it to Parliament to make a decision because this is something that is against precedence. President and Treasurer were not paid for the previous years, even though for somewhere under a decade it has included 12 people in the request for the following year's budget, which means I should backtrack a little bit for the membership of the Finance Commission. For those of you that do not know, it is 5 Parliament, 5 non-Parliament members, the Administrative Supervisor as a non-voting ex officio member, as well as the Treasurer as the Chair. And then that is 8.1, Article 8 in the bylaws, Finance Commission. That is as well with the President's duties to be ex officio on all committees. They are expected to be there as well because it is important to have them. So there are realistically on a full commission 12 people. So that is my understanding of why 12 is usually requested, and that was the reason I requested it again going forward, because I believe the President and Treasurer should be compensated for the work they do there on that weekend. If there are any questions or discussion about that, I'm more than happy to hear it, but I would like to handle the letter before we move on to the resolution, because the resolution is I'm trying to leave some precedents going forward so that Presidents and Treasurers in the future do not have to worry about the calling out of work or whatever they need to do for that weekend. So I want there to be something that Parliament approves that would be standing, so that in future years they can see that resolution. So any questions or discussion issues about the letter, I would be more happy to yield the floor to Representative Gomez.
So prior
had to do these budget hearings?
Yes, I did, because last year I was comptroller, and yes. I would yield the floor to Representative Percy.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Do you and the president vote in, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but do you guys vote when it comes to the finance decisions?
The president is ex officio. I voted in case of a tie.
Okay.
So I am the tie-breaking vote. Anyone else would like the floor? Alumni
I'm
representative.
going to step in for a second. Do we have a motion and a second on the resolution before we continue this debate?
My apologies.
Motion made by Representative Gomez. Is there a second? Second by Representative Enos. Now is there any discussion? Representative Lima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Court of Parliamentary Inquiry. Is this considered a financial matter?
Is it, Mr. Treasurer?
Well, it's your ruling, Mr. Speaker.
I'm sorry?
Is your ruling whether or not this would constitute a financial?
This
Non-student members can't vote on a financial or electoral matter, so I'm just wondering if this resolution is.
This is a resolution. This is going to be an opinion expressed by the body. This is not a policy. This is not a financial matter.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify that because
Sorry, I misunderstood the question.
I wanted to speak my piece on it either way, but I just want to know if I can vote on it or not.
You may.
So my question, I guess, through the chair to the treasurer, the idea of this is for the president and the treasurer to be paid for the budget hearings as at the same hourly rate that the other students are paid, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a few issues with that, of contention. One, I should note the minimum wage is going to be going up again to $10.50 an hour, 2019. So just to be advised of that. As an elected officer, you're basically expected to perform duties and have responsibilities outside of the normal scope of even a cabinet member or a parliament member. I'll give you an example in the city of Cranston. The mayor is paid on a 40-hour work week, but the mayor works a heck of a lot more than 40 hours. The mayor doesn't take overtime, the mayor doesn't get comp time. The mayor works 100 hours a week when the mayor needs to work. If the mayor has an event on the weekend, they go to the event. A city council person, same thing. They're required to attend council meetings. They don't get paid for those. That's part of the duties of the elected position. And on top of that, they go to community events and things of that nature. So I look at the budget hearings as part of the duties of an officer. And I can speak with some context on this because in 2007, when the officer positions last received a significant raise in their stipends, this was actually considered as a factor that when we were looking at the stipend that the treasurer receives, for instance, versus the stipend that the vice president and the secretary receive, we consider the fact that the treasurer has an extraordinary amount of work. That's why the treasurer was placed at second on the line of stipend receiving. Can't think of the document. It's called the stipend policy compared to the president. One other question I do have is the secretary, by the policies of student community government, has a role in budget hearings. And I haven't heard any discussion about the secretary being compensated. So I would strongly suggest and advise that if the president and the treasurer were by this body decided that they should be paid in addition to the normal stipend, that the secretary should likewise, because the secretary is really supposed to be there for the entirety of the budget hearings and provides SOX recommendation to finance based on that organization's activity, whether or not they've earned the funds that they're requesting for the following year. But that said, I go back to my original point in that I just feel you should be cautionary about adding any additional funds. Those stipends are pretty specifically set. At the time in 2007, when we set the president's stipend, it was set at 100% of the tuition for that year. The treasurer was set, I think, at 90% of the tuition for that year. And we didn't set it to increase the tuition because we foresaw that tuition would be increasing dramatically, and we didn't want the stipends to likewise increase that way. So we locked it at that year's tuition. We figured maybe Parliament could revisit in 5 or 10 years or whenever it deems appropriate. It had been, I believe, 15 or 20 years prior to that point that those stipends had not been increased, so they were definitely overdue. That said, I think you should be very cautious about paying yourself the same stipend for that particular weekend of work that you're paying to the other members who really beyond their duties in finance don't have any other auxiliary duties. They don't have to attend PECEC luncheons, so they don't have to attend other special meetings and put in office hours to the extent that the officers do, which is always beyond the extent of what the minimum is required. basically, what I'm saying is that the duties of an elected official, who in this case elected by this body, are to go above and beyond and to do those things that you don't necessarily get paid for, you might not even get recognition for, but really are just, they go with the territory of the job. And that's why I would be opposed, if I am permitted, Mr. Speaker, to vote on this, I personally oppose and would vote to oppose this particular resolution. Thank you.
Do you have a question from the treasurer?
My question was asked and answered.
Okay.
The secretary, the only question was about the secretary.
Do you want to answer this, treasurer?
Yes, that was brought into consideration, but due to their non-mandatory appearance, as last year we only had them for 1 day, this year we had them for 0 days, they aren't obligated to take time off of work to be there, so they don't have to worry about missing out on any sort of full-time or part-time if they have any auxiliary to this.
I would just counter that, Mr. Speaker, that perhaps and this is a separate discussion, but maybe the policy should be reconsidered in the future that they do have a mandatory responsibility to be there. I know it's not mandatory. I know a lot of times recommendations come through SOC. I can tell you for about 15 years, even though the policy was there, SOC didn't put a recommendation in at all. I was the first secretary to do it in 2007 because I found this dusty policy in the bottom drawer of a bin and said, oh, SOC has a role in budget hearings? I had no idea. So I think that maybe the student community government should look at that policy and consider whether or not the secretary should be added. If there's a role in it, there's a role in it. And everyone who's making those decisions should be there to ask questions of each other, particularly, as you know, in the key moments at the end of both days when budgets are really kind of hashed out and discussed amongst the members before the final recommendations are made. Having all the players there, all the people that have a say to participate in that discussion, I think is important. I think it's in Parliament's best interest to have everyone.
Representative Gomez.
Got a two-part question. First part is, do the committee members on finance get paid for their meetings?
Yes. Against what the stipend policy is listed, Parliament members are paid for it. They are not supposed to receive additional stipends for committee work, but this is something that is handled as an extraordinary thing for them to do, so they are paid.
Any chance you have the number for that?
Do you mean how much they were paid for the?
Yeah.
It depends how long the meeting goes, because the second one is budgeted for 9 to 5, but if you finish recommendations earlier on Sunday, then you don't work as many hours. So it just depends. It's minimum wage times the amount of hours it took.
And I'll just leave it.
Representative Enos.
I'm just a little confused by one of the sentences in the last paragraph of the letter. It just says, I'm not asking for additional money or an allocation as in the line item. It is already listed as 12 people being paid for the budget hearings, but if they're being paid $960 currently, a raise to $1010 would be something that you would need to ask for, correct?
Yes, sorry for that. So for the recommendation for the following year, which will come during the satisfied or unsatisfied budget, there is an asked for increase. What I'm saying, in this year's budget, there's already allocated for 12 people, so if we were to pay the president treasurer, no more money would be added to these office personnel line. My apologies.
Treasurer Santana, you're back on the list. Did you have any additional?
The floor was the
Okay. Representative Percy.
Thank you. I have quite a few questions here. I do sympathize with your statement here because I do feel as though having a position down at WXIN, I do a lot more work than I'm supposed to be doing, and it is pain. But it is part of the job to step up and do above and beyond due to the fact that that's my position there. I have a couple questions. You could answer them, or I could also yield the floor to the president. You could answer these for me. You're technically the chair of the Finance Commission. I've been part of the elections committee before, and I know we get paid per meeting, but do the chair people get paid any additional money for holding all those meetings? Does the vice president get paid extra for holding all those town hall meetings that they have to go to? Does the SOC chairperson, does the secretary get paid for the 4 roundtables that they're supposed to hold and take time out of their busy day to hold? Does the president get paid any extra for going to all these meetings with the president and the vice president and really representing us? I think I know the answer to these questions, and it's no. But I do want to ask the president, since it is involved in here, do you feel, in your opinion, that you are fairly compensated do you feel as though you are fairly compensated for the entire year, or what the monthly or the weekly or bi-weekly you get paid? I just want to know your personal opinion.
If I can respond.
Sure.
I do feel I'm fairly compensated with my monthly stipend, as is.
Mr. Percy, still on the floor. Secretary Byrd.
It was never brought to my attention that the budget hearings were mandatory, at least for my position. It was my
That's
understanding that the same duty as applied to me was also applied to the president. So my question is, what is like our official title on those hearings?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
How are we on like you have 5 parliament members, what's our position on the budget hearings?
As a secretary?
Are we ad hoc or are we ex officio? What's our title?
Who's title? Your
Our
title?
title. Yes.
Who's our? Like as secretary?
Yeah.
Mr. Treasurer?
Yes, you would yield the floor. So the president is ex officio of all student committees, which means it's not technically required for them to be there. They are not listed in the membership of the Finance Commission, who are all required to be there for the mandatory meeting. The secretary, it is listed that you should give recommendations, but you are not a member of the Finance Commission, and again, you are not. It's not mandatory for you to be at the budget hearing. It's only a part of policy. It's a request, so we have more information.
All right. So I'm not ex officio, I'm nothing like that,
No.
correct? All right. So my other question is, and it's kind of an open question to whoever can answer it. Is it viewed as voluntary work for an ex officio member to be at that budget hearing?
Anyone want to answer that? Mr. President?
Again, my opinion, all student government positions, all voluntary positions, they are compensated through a stipend. That stipend is not a hourly paycheck at all. A parliament, for example, gets $20 per meeting, whether or not that meeting lasts 15 minutes or that meeting lasts 5 hours. It's just a stipended student leadership position. If that answers your question.
It does.
There are no more names. Anyone else? Mr. Lima?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just one more question. I haven't really been able to judge the room of this resolution. I don't know which way it's going to go. But actually, through the chair, again, to the treasurer. So, looking at the only portion of the resolution that has a point of action, that would only be fair for the treasurer and president to be paid for the work that they are forced to do outside of regular business hours in addition to the regular duties. In the context of the resolution, that's obviously referring to just the hourly wages for the weekend of budget hearings. Is this the intent of this to be retroactively effective to the most recent budget hearings that just took place, or is it the intent to be going forward?
I asked to focus on the letter first because the letter is from myself. It was just for myself, and that would be voting for this year. The resolution is something I proposed for following year so that there is a precedence for them to look at if this ever comes up again. So the resolution is going forward. The letter is for current.
Well, the letter is a letter. I'm not sure what action there is on the letter.
The letter is taking no action. The letter is just an overall view of the treasurer's opinion on the matter that is separate from the resolution. That is his opinion. It's not going to be voted on by the body, just the resolution will be.
Unless you're asking for the letter to have the endorsement of the parliament or something like that.
The treasurer.
I would like to bring the letter to a vote for the current year. The idea was I'd come and get a parliament's blessing or denial of doing withdrawal slips for this year's president and treasurer.
So
My
just to-
apologies for
So
that.
just to clarify, you're looking for 2 votes. One vote for the letter to be endorsed, and basically for Parliament to endorse the language of the letter, which would make it effective for this year. And the second vote is the resolution, which pretty much takes the spirit of that letter and puts it into a permanent policy in terms of going forward. This is the way it should be operated.
Correct.
Does that make sense, Mr. Speaker?
Makes sense to me. Right now, we're discussing the resolution. I wasn't aware that the letter was to be voted on. So the resolution will be voted on first unless someone votes to change the amend the agenda right now.
Well, my only other question was pertinent to the resolution.
Sure.
Well, I guess if the resolution is not, let me clarify then, is the resolution not related to this past budget hearing?
Correct.
Okay, so then my only question then was related to the letter, not the resolution, and therefore I'll yield the floor, Mr. Speaker.
Excellent. So, is there any, Representative Percy?
I just want to know how much the president and the treasurer get paid. It could be the bi-weekly or the monthly. I you're the money guy, so I'd like to know
First, for the question about current payment, it is $233 every other week for myself as president, which is, I have the stipend policy in front of me somewhere. I don't think it's listed. Yeah, no, that is, it's, yeah, it's the treasurer. But I don't have the president's number in front of me, so if you know.
Mr. President?
I can answer. It is $518 per month or $259 bi-weekly. Or twice a month, I should say.
My apologies, I think I misspoke. I meant $466 a month. It's split bi-weekly, $233. Secondarily, I would like to motion to reconsider the agenda so that the letter can.
In time, we can, I'll call for
So,
it.
point of information, Mr. Speaker.
Sure.
How many months is that stipend distributed?
Currently, it's 9 months. There's a summer stipend that is optional if you do work with the incoming treasurer or president, whatever it is, to try and train them. That is only offered to the executive council, not the officers of parliament.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. President, you still have the floor. Secretary Caperta.
Just really quick, I'm a little confused because at the last question I just asked for the president regarding if the work was voluntary or forced. I believe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, I believe you said it was voluntary work. It's a part of your job duties, right? So I'm just questioning what we're actually resolving with the resolution because it very obviously states the president to be paid for the work that they are forced to do outside of regular business hours. So I just hope that we could get a point of clarification on that.
Mr. Treasurer.
Yes, so that was because in my experience on the Finance Commission, the president is always there as well. They are ex officio, and with all committees that are ex officio, they can take that time off. And of course, they would not be given a check if they were to do that, because in the stipend policy, it does list members shall be present at each meeting for which a meeting stipend is claimed. So if the president doesn't show up one year for the budget hearings, they will not be given a check for that. But it is encouraged because it is an extremely important meeting because it does decide the budget for the following year, as well as the budget hearings of Parliament.
So I guess my other additional question to it is, I mean, obviously I feel like we haven't really resolved anything in this resolution, but also to a point that you said that he would not be punished for not showing up to these meetings, and if that's the case, why would that he be rewarded for showing up?
I can see your reasoning there. I think that with the president's positions of power and how important it is for the budget hearings to go successfully, it is important to have them there to give that voice. If someone were to decide not to show up since they're not listed as a member of the Finance Commission, I guess you could say they wouldn't be impeached for that specifically. But so I would be open to revisiting the wording of the resolution to modify it for adding in that the president isn't mandatory to be there. It is only highly encouraged. But that would be.
Well, just to conclude, I mean, I just really don't see how we can amend this resolution for it to make legitimate sense, in my opinion. I will definitely be voting no for this resolution, not because I don't respect the work that you guys do provide for this body and the students, but simply because I don't believe this policy would make any sense.
Mr. Treasurer.
As a resolution, there can be multiple be therefore resolved, and you could add one that has the treasurer and has one for the president. If this was something that was tabled until next meeting, as resolutions often are recommended to do, so people have time to deliberate on it, I would be more than happy to edit it myself and bring a modified copy for the following consideration.
Mr. Secretary, you still have the floor.
Well, yeah, I just conclude that I really don't see what we are actually resolving here. It seems like we're actually bringing up more of a debate than anything, but I mean, overall, I don't think this should pass, and that's my personal opinion.
Right, Representative Garcia,
Does a parliament,
please stand.
Does a parliament member that's on the commission get paid for every meeting, correct?
Mr. Treasurer.
No, they're not paid for regular meetings, as is the stipend policy, but all members of the Finance Commission are paid the hourly rate.
Representative Gomez.
Doing some quick maths. I was looking over how much if we were to get paid and whatnot. Me personally, I am on the Finance Commission and I was there for those budget meetings, so I got myself a little pretty $160 check. But that is nothing compared to your $466, and I'm sorry, but I love you.
There are no more. Secretary Caperna?
Just one more point of information for the body. Also, when we were discussing both the letter and the resolution itself with one of our advisors, Dr. Mott, he didn't personally seem particularly enthralled with the language or the idea that these are proposing. So I just hope to think that his opinion could also be taken into account.
Further discussion? Ms. Polanski?
I just had a quick question. So it's 12 altogether, but what are the extra two? If it's 5 Harlem and 5 non-Harlem, what are the extra two?
I believe that's the current debate, but if the president wants to speak.
What's that like currently consisting of, like in policy?
Mr. President?
If I can answer that question, and apologies for the vague answer, you are correct. It is currently budgeted for 12, and has been since 2010, 2011, thereabouts. However, I cannot give you an answer whether or not it was the intention of previous parliaments, previous executive councils, and previous finance commissions to use that money to pay the president and treasurer. I can give you information that the comptroller policy was changed, that they were not a member of the finance commission originally when the cabinet policy was passed in November of 2011, and they were added to be a member of the finance commission in 2014. So I could theorize that it could have been for the comptroller to go to that weekend to assist, since they were not a member of the commission being compensated already. But that's just a theory. There are no, and I've looked at the minutes books and the budget rationales, the budget requests. The rationale for SCG is just taking the number of seats and multiplying it by 12, taking the number 12 and then multiplying it by so much an hour and then times 14 hours for the weekend.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
You have a further question, Joe?
So it's just, you don't know why it's budgeted for 12, we just definitely know what the 10 is for.
Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion? I'd like to say something, because I like to say things about things. You all sitting down? You all ready for this? Here's my thing. And I don't necessarily support either of you in this room that, either this proposal or those that are opposing. Because I don't believe that the Finance Commission members should be paid hourly on weekends. I know there's a lot of, Finance Commission members in here that are giving me the daggers right now. However, the reason why I say that is we all, a lot of us here are chairs of committees and commissions. I don't get paid any extra. However, if my bylaws and adjudication commission, if we had to meet, say for instance, for a 5-hour meeting God, I couldn't even imagine that. But if we had to meet for a 5-hour meeting, my members still get paid their flat rate. So to me, I don't like I just feel like it's unfair, and I feel like it's not conforming to the spirit of equity that we've taken on. I do, however, believe that if you ever check out the Senate and House pages, the page programs that they have up there, they get paid by session. Now, by session means, say for instance, it's I forget how long it is. I think it's a 2.5-hour meeting. So the state Senate, for example, they have a certain amount of time. For instance, they have to adjourn their session by 6:30. If they have to continue on, they would adjourn that day, start a new day, even though 6:30 they end, 6:31 they start a new day, and then the pages get paid an extra day. So they get paid $25 a session. So say for instance they get paid for that session, then they go into another session at 6:30, they get paid another $25. I believe that we should have in student community government a time limit for meetings, because the majority of them last an hour, but sometimes they last more, sometimes they last less. And if they go over a certain allotted time, then the commission members get paid another flat rate. I don't like the whole minimum wage payment for each weekend, because you know, the argument is they have to take time out of work. We all have to take time out of work. I'm a professional, I work. I have to sacrifice a lot of time that I would allocate to my job to be here. And that's why I would say that it's not, in the spirit of equity, it doesn't add up. However, since my proposal is not on the floor, and my proposal is not being deliberated right now in any committees or commissions, in the event of a tie, I would be voting in favor of this. However, it is just a resolution. It's not a policy. So no matter how you vote tonight, it's not going to change policy. From there, that just expresses that's the opinion of the body, and then we could build on that and go to the proper avenues of getting that policy changed. And in the event that this does not pass, I may be advocating for my position as well. And it may sound terrible to some of you right now, especially those on the Finance Commission. However, that's because I'm kind of spitballing, and that's just kind of the idea that's out in my head. I promise you, it'll look a lot better once it's on paper. If it goes on paper, it'll be a lot better organized and a lot cleaner than how I'm just spitting it out right now. Representative Garcia, you had something?
Yes, so I just want to say first and foremost that I respect and I hear your opinion on this. But I just want to say, in my perspective, I'm going to have to disagree. I think I'm really happy and glad that, Finance Commission people, they do get paid on the weekends, because let's say I need to pay a credit card or something. We're students, we're in school most of the time, we barely have any time to work, and the weekends, obviously, we want to use that time to be with our friends or catch up on homework, but we can't because, we have bills to pay. Sometimes our parents get charges for rent. So, like my friend here, Danielle, she works the weekends, Friday to Saturday, she spends her days working at a restaurant, making tips and stuff like that. And how much you get on your paycheck? You get a paycheck, right? Do you just, it's just tips? Or, well, whatever it is, students, they're students. And, they do deserve to get paid for those tedious long hours of budget hearings. On the other side, the government stuff, the Senate meetings, all that stuff, they're grown men who have already high-powered jobs or something. They're getting $1,000 a week or something, or I don't know. So if they don't get paid, that's fine. They're still gonna take home a hefty paycheck. These students are not. They're not making that much. And after college, you probably it takes a long time to get a good paying job right out of college. So I think that the commission members, I'm glad that they are getting paid for that weekend stuff, because nobody, we don't like to work, but it would suck to have to call out of work just for these hearings and stuff and not get paid.
Point of
for it.
order, Mr. President, Speaker. I believe the resolution is referring to the president and treasurer and not to the commission members as a whole. So I don't see how this conversation is in order.
I believe that was just a follow-up to what I said by remarks. So, do you have anything further to say? All right, and just to respond to that, I was referring to the House and Senate pages. They are, so they're still in school. They start at 15 years old, and they can work up till they're in. By the time they're in college, by the time they get out of college, they can. Right, absolutely. Representative Gomez.
Hi, I agree with what you said about the time limit, and now you just put into a whole perspective, something I didn't think about. Yes, the treasurer and the president do sacrifice their weekends, and me personally, I got myself a little pretty $160 check, but guess what? I lost out on $300 because that's what my Saturdays cost. I work 12 to 12 and I make $300 that day, so I still took a loss. Why? Because I'm a person who's active on campus, and yeah, so I just wanted to state that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
No.
Abstentions? Abstentions by Representative Polanski, Treasurer Santana, Representative Sabilski, Representative Patry. Any further abstentions?
I'm sorry, can I just have the abstentions in here? So it's Polanski, Santana, Sabilski, and Patry.
Correct. And the resolution fails. Moving on to item C, Rick Dining Services Advisory Board bylaws. Representative Patry, on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President. Thank you, body, for allowing me to put this on last minute.
What I've done is I've reworked the bylaws for the Rhode Island College Dining Services Advisory Board. The reason for reworking these bylaws is to have greater student involvement. We've raised the committee from 7 until up to 12 student members. I'm sorry, we raised it from 5 to 7 student members, and we've changed the dispersion of the students, where they come from, how they get there. The purpose of the advisory board is basically to provide counsel and advice to me regarding some very serious dining service matters. Now, I know when most people see advisory board, they say, oh, it's a waste of time, it's an advisory board. But as long as I'm here, and as long as I'm the director, we will continue to listen and place great weight on what the students have to say. I've put this out to the Vice President for Administration, who I've answered to. I told him I was coming here, and I explained the same thing to him. The purpose of this is to have a greater participation in a broader spectrum across the campus. I would like to point out section 3.1, 3 commuter students appointed by the President of Student Community Government. 3.12, 2 resident students appointed by the Director of Res Life in consultation with the President of RSA. 2 general students to be appointed by the Vice President for Student Success, and 1 graduate student member. In addition, one of the other changes will be the inclusion of somebody from assigned faculty or staff member appointed by the Assistant Vice President for Community, Equity, and Diversity. I would further like to point out under Article 4.0 that it's my intention to have a student chairperson, and that chairperson would be elected by the outgoing board. Folks, bottom line on this, we need students to help shape the dining center. Maybe we will not see what's being shaped right now. We may be gone, but there'll be others behind us. And it's important that we have student input. I asked the Parliament to consider the approach we're taking, and any assistance that you can give to get greater student input would be greatly appreciated. The very last page has to do with the new dining center meal plan for 2018 and 19. These are the type of things that I'm talking about. These are the type of things where student input is critical. This came from student input. Thank you for your time. If anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Treasurer Santana?
My only thing is on the first page, 3.0 says 7 student members, and 3.1 goes on to list 8 student members. Is it the first 7 that are selected, or how is that?
That's a mistake on my part. And I apologize for that. The intent is to have a total of 7 student members. This is a draft. If there's any, I will make a note on it. If there's anything else that any of you folks see, please point it out. All right, I'll be happy to address it. I apologize for that.
President Lehman?
Just had another, it's a friendly kind of point when you take this draft and down on the passage of it. I have a question. Does the Rick Council approve this since you're on auxiliary? Well, it's just the dining center policy, actually.
This would be a dining center
It's a dining
policy.
center policy.
But I would be more than happy to check and see if it is something appropriate for the Rick Council to approve.
All right, thank you. Well, first I want to thank you for bringing this to Parliament, because it's great to see a college department, bringing their own policies to run by SCG. I only wish that other college departments at the college would do the same with what matters. But thank you again, Officer. Just one quick point. It is a draft. If you could add wherever it says student community government, if you could put Inc., since we are a 503c nonprofit corporation after that. But other than that, I really appreciate you coming to this body and how this document is drafted.
Representative Lima?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Patriot, one question. If The intent is to have 7 student members. Would student community government retain 3 commuter student members?
It will be,
It'll stay
it
as
will
3.
be
So,
8 student members altogether.
okay. So, Mr. Speaker, we don't have a motion on the table, correct?
No.
I make a motion that student parliament endorse the concept of this proposal and the general wording thereof and stay as a draft document, but I think this is a very good proposal. It has a lot of great language here. It has great representation from various aspects and facets of the student body. This body is certainly going to be well represented on it. It's overall a great idea, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, I make a motion that this body, officially the motion is that student parliament endorses this draft dining services advisory board bylaws, and that upon its adoption by the dining center, it be immediately added to the president's appointment list to ensure that the president is aware of.
Motion made by Representative Lima to have Parliament's endorsement of the draft of the Rhode Island College Dining Services Advisory Board bylaws, seconded by Representative Gomez. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Abstentions by Mr. Patry. Representative, you have our endorsement and our blessing. Representative, any further discussion? Hearing none. I'd like to, go on. Updates and remarks, faculty update. Item 1 is off the docket. Dr. Andrews is not here. Item 2, Rosalind Sabilski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have nothing new at this time.
Item B, staff update, Mr. Arthur Patry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For everybody to know, the college has opened up the Welcome Center on the Mount Pleasant entrance side of the campus. Campus Police is there, capital projects, performing arts, and conferences and special events. I'd like to speak briefly on conferences and special events. For many years, the college had a department of conferences and special events. It was one deep, it was Kathy Sasso. When she mentioned the name Kathy Sasso, it meant conferences. The college is standing that up with more people to do things like this conference that's being held here right now. It's not necessarily meant for external customers. It's meant for all of the customers on the campus, to include the student organizations, etc. The benefit of that conference and special events division will be there'll be more support. There'll be a clearinghouse that can help the different groups, especially student groups, navigate EMS, get audio visual, look at this, look at other options. As always, dining services will support whatever the students come to us with, but you will see us working more closely with the student groups and involved in conferences and special events. The second thing is this afternoon I had the pleasure, I'll say pleasure because it was very inspiring to see the college engage in active shooter type training, which was held over Engage. I know it's a tough subject. Folks, when I went to school here, that's the last thing you had to worry about anywhere. But the realization is there's some serious things out there. One of the key points I just wanted to share with you, they kept hammering it home, so I'm going to hammer it home here. Folks, if we see or hear something, report it. If we see or hear something, report it. And from a personal note, if one of our friends, if somebody that we're involved with, they change, reach out to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Dean of Students, Dr. Marissa Weiss put in a leave. Ms. Shauna Altenberger, are you here? No. Moving on to item D, alumni update. Representative Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have no report. I would just like a note for the record that I've been the alumni representative for nearly 2 years. We're currently about to be in March, my second year. In that time, I have yet to attend a meeting that also had the administrative representative in attendance at it. And I think if we had more active representation from our administrative representatives, maybe this body would have known about the academic standing changes for student organizations that were recently pushed through by the council. Thank you.
Mr. President, what have you?
If I can respond to that, I completely agree. At this point, to not see the dean of student seat filled or the administrative rep, seat filled is disheartening at this point. And I want to thank the faculty members and the staff members that do serve because they can provide us with information. This is an issue that I have been talking to both Vice President for Student Success, Dr. Jason Merriweather, and Dr. Frank Sanchez, the President of the college, about. They have some opinions that differ and vary. They are trying to hire a new dean of students that would also be the Associate Vice President for Student Success. That's something that would serve as a party. As well as the fact that there are 2 seats, and currently one is not filled at all, and the other is being filled by co-deans that have other responsibilities. So it is an issue of concern, and we'll continue to bring it up to the president of the college and to the vice president of student success.
Moving on to item 9, appointments, resignations, vacancies. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have several appointments, including myself to some committees, so I'll be making motions for these. I'd like to make a motion that Devin Coster is appointed to the Performing and Fine Arts Commission.
Motion been made by President Lima. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Representative Gomez. Any discussion? Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions by Mr. Costa. So ordered.
I would like to appoint Dana Nevlin to the Committee on College Lectures. I'll make that motion.
Motion made by President Lima, seconded by Representative Gomez. Discussion. Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. So ordered.
I would like to make a motion to appoint Thomas Lima to the non-resident seat on the Committee of Student Life.
Would someone be willing to make that motion for the president? Motion made by Representative Percy, seconded by Deputy Speaker Ferguson. Any discussion? Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions by President Lima. So ordered.
Just as a point of clarification, do I actually have to abstain when I appoint myself? Because as the president in the bylaws said, I make all appointments and committees.
Right, however,
I'm just doing it as a courtesy of Alderman.
You don't have to,
Okay.
but you know,
I
you wouldn't be able to
could
make a
a
motion.
motion to appoint myself.
You would, in theory, you know, this is for best practices.
All right.
It's,
With that being said, I would like to, someone on Paul, I'd like to make a motion to appoint myself to the Performing and Fine Arts Commission.
Motion made by Representative Percy, seconded by Representative Costa. Discussion. Hearing none, we move to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions by President Lima. So ordered.
And I would like the motion to appoint Amanda Monaghan to the Advisory Committee on Undergraduate Admissions Policy.
Motion made by Representative Vice President Ruggieri, seconded by Secretary Caperna. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions.
Thank you, and that concludes my appointments. I have no resignations. There are several vacancies on college committees and SUG committees. For a reminder, as a duty hall member, you have to serve on both a college committee and on an SUG committee. You have other duties as a hall member as well, such as putting forward a resolution and writing a report on the status of how you serve your constituency. And that concludes my appointments, resignations, and vacancies.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Moving on to issues of Parliament members. Representative Percy.
I've been reading past in the past minutes. I would like to remind the Executive Council that as Mr. Lehman has requested, there's still no clock in the room, I believe. Can we get one?
Duly noted. Mr. Lima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's very important, so I think it's worth mentioning twice. Dr. Gary Penfield, who Penfield Hall is named after, sat in that chair, usually is on that side of the table, for just over 35 years on this body. And there weren't too many years that went by where he missed more than one meeting. And he was the Vice President of Student Affairs for the college. For a great deal of that time, he was the ranking administrator in the college administration, the longest serving administrator. In fact, one of the longest serving administrators in the history of the state in higher education. The dean of students from the 1990s up until just recently, Dr. Scott Kane, again, for over 20 years, sat, usually on that side, in one of those seats. And again, very rarely, unless he had a pressing personal commitment, missed a meeting. I would just like to point out the fact that for the last year and a half, that there has not been an administrative representative on this body for not just to bring updates from the body, but for the body to have a dialogue like we do with the faculty and the staff and the alumni as part of all discussions, I think is an insult to this body. And I think it maybe is a consideration that the administration doesn't value the need to have that representation here. Certainly, it appears that of the two current administrative representatives that have been appointed, like I said, I've missed maybe one meeting or two meetings this year myself, but in the meetings I have attended, which is the vast majority, I do not recall having ever seen either of them here. So I think that's something that's very noteworthy, and I think it's something that this body should strongly bring to the attention of administration, perhaps as part of the alarm with what we discussed earlier regarding these new out of nowhere restrictions on campus and student involvement and student life. Thank you.
President Lehman.
Thank you. Again, just to echo something that was brought up during the alumni representative's comments, I do agree, and I have been, to speak further on the conversation I've been having with Vice President Merriweather and President Sanchez. You know, they're both new here, they don't exactly know how Parliament works, how we operate. I'm trying to explain, they don't see the point of having both the dean and the administration rep, because in their view, the dean of students is a high-ranking member of the college administration. Currently, they definitely do empathize with our current situation. Having neither here is not good, especially with the changing of the title of the dean. They still, in their opinion, that they may see it as the dean would definitely be part of the administration. You know, however, it's something, an issue I will continue to press on the college administration on this issue. I just want to make that state that for the body. Aside from that, when it came down to the budget hearings issue, I voted no on the resolution. I believe it is within the duties of the officers. I believe that increasing the number, and again, I could not find why it was increased to 12. However, I believe SCG, should possibly submit unsatisfied to have that struck and to reduce it down to 10. Currently, budget recommendations are out that will coming to this body to satisfied and unsatisfied, meaning that's just my opinion on the matter. Because there are other possibilities that were brought up, but again, nothing is in writing as far as the budget rationale for the SCG operating budget, which funds the 12 positions, and I believe continuing the fund for 12 positions when the commission is only 10 people is a mistake. If the commission was raised to 12 student positions, say 6 and 6 instead of 5 and 5, then I can understand funding for 12 positions. Regards to something that the speaker brought up earlier, it is an interesting point that the Finance Commission is the only committee that gets paid an hourly rate. It could be done differently. It could be done not necessarily per meeting. It could be the hearings, which in my opinion should probably be possibly more formalized than they are, although I do enjoy the process as is. I served as treasurer last year. I've served on the Finance Commission as well. It could be broken up that they are just multiple different meetings that happen throughout the day, rather than when we try to compete with the minimum wage when it's not a paycheck, it's a stipend. I believe that is a gray area. And that concludes my issues.
Representative Garcia.
I'll just keep this short and sweet. I don't think that I called point of order should have been called when I was responding to Sears' opinion, because it was just our opinion, and it was just one round of a debate. It wasn't like we went like back and forth. Then of course I'm gonna be like, all right, yeah, like someone shut me up so that, because obviously we're not getting nowhere. But I think what he said should have been discussed like this. If he feels that way, he should get to say something like that, because that is in response to that. And in terms of the money and, you know, actually get to say something too. But I'm not really mad, I'm just saying that I don't think that was like the appropriate time.
Representative Gomez, I'm sorry, President Lima was next.
pass on you.
Representative Gomez?
I see that this is like a recurring problem in Parliament where our voices are getting silenced and our opinions aren't getting heard. I feel like that's something that we should think about. As going back to a couple, I think even last semester was it where Nate got shut down when he was talking. I feel like as Parliament members, and we're so little of us here that we should have the time to talk about what we need to talk about and have those discussions.
Secretary Caperna?
I mean, I just believe, like, because it was a thought when you were speaking, I agree that you should have a right to speak about whatever your opinion. I think it's just when referencing what we were specifically talking about had to do specifically with the resolution that was on the agenda. And I think the discussion kind of swayed a little bit, and we were just, the president was just trying to get us back on track because I mean, if we just continuously go off on speaking on tangents, we'll be here as long as we were, as Nathaniel Banks was when we had that one Parliament meeting. And I mean, that's, yeah, and I yield the floor to you.
Yeah, like I understand that that's completely fine, but like I was saying, like he made a good point, and I want to respond to that, saying that I disagree, but I think what I said had to do with that.
Well, I mean,
just like when the president was here, like when in terms of the online thing, like you do deserve to have an opinion. Like, what if someone was against the online thing, like, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, long story short, I think we're very excited to see what may come of this potential resolution to the body. I think some of us might be excited.
And I'm going to also say that a couple of points. The point of order that was proposed by President Lima when we were discussing what I was discussing, it was not sustained. You did also, since it wasn't, you also had the right to continue on speaking. I believe I asked you to speak, but then rest assured, since this is not passed, this resolution, I am going to be putting forth something. I'm going to be probably maybe in a resolution style, maybe not even as a resolution. I'll probably write a letter, open it up for discussion, and we can have those talks. I do plan on, I'd have to follow up with the treasurer and see how I can go about requesting SCG to go to unsatisfied. So the process would be for that, because funding policies are not my forte. And I do have some questions regarding that, because there are some things I'm unsatisfied about. But again, before that comes before Parliament, I'd even love to sit down and meet with some people here in this room and see what they think, because I know it's a scary proposal when you first hear it. However, I'm looking to not cut something. I'm trying to make something better. And I think that's what we all try to do here at SCG Incorporated, is try to better conditions for our students. Representative Lima, you're on the board.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, just to clarify the points of order, you bring up a very good point, because I thought that your point was valid, because the speaker kind of opened the door. He was already talking about that. You were just responding to what had already been said. I thought that was a valid point. But that said, any member of the body can call a point of order. However, once it's called, any member of the body can then object to it. So once it's called, the speaker has to make a ruling. Sustained or overruled. Overruled allows a person to continue speaking. Sustained means the point of order is valid and the person is drifted off topic. If you disagree with the speaker's call, you can then challenge the speaker's ruling. And on that particular case, if you had done so, I have no problem seconding that and making sure that order was maintained and that you had the right to speak on it, because the rules are there, just like kind of like that debate we had last fall. The rules are there to keep the meeting going, but they're also there to protect us. And if you ever disagree with the ruling, you always have that option. You can make a motion to challenge the chair, you have a second, and then you have a 5-minute debate, and you figure out where the new resolution is. And the body can overrule the chair. It's certainly possible. In that case, I think the speaker already kind of said it actually wasn't even overruled, it was sustained, so you could have kept speaking. But just so the members of the body are aware, you have, as Parliament members, very, very strong rights to object, to challenge, to overrule, to as I did a few motions today, kind of just as examples, because I haven't really heard much this year. Motion to reconsider point of personal privilege, which was used to reconsider point of parliamentary inquiry, which was used to ask a question about procedure, whether or not I could vote. Those are all motions and points that you, as parliament members, have the authority to make at any time.
And just to be clear, I did overrule that point of order. Any further discussion? Hearing none, motion to adjourn. Motion made by Deputy Speaker Ferguson and seconded by Representative Gomez. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Silent is seated, please, for the second roll call.
Thomas Lehman.
Here.
Vanessa Ruggieri. Here. Joseph DePerda.
Hello.
Ryan Santana.
Here.
David Olds Harris.
Here.
Natalie Ferguson. Here. Caitlin Kane. Here. Devin Costa.
Here.
Catherine Enos. Here. Genesis Garcia. Here. Nell Gomez. Here. Amanda Monahan. Joshua Percy.
Here.
Alexis Polanski. Here. Matthew Scarrow. Brianna Winstead. Marissa Weiss. Sean Altenberger. Valerie Enders. Rosalind Zabilski. Here. Arthur Patrick.
Here.
Nicholas Lehman.
Here.